Here we are then, day 9, chapter 9 of John's Gospel, coming up for halfway through here. Well done if you've stuck it out on the journey so far. I really hope and pray that God's speaking to you and that you're growing through this time. And hey, if you haven't managed to stick it out on the journey so far, if you've missed some days, that's cool. Just jump in where we're at. God's always got more for us whenever we're ready to come and hear from him. So chapter 9. And in chapter 9 of John's Gospel, we have this account of how Jesus healed a man who was born blind. And there were two things that really struck me in this passage. So first of all, focusing in on the man who was healed, who was able to see, and the way that Jesus heals him. You know, when we read through all the stories about Jesus healing people, there is no set formula, if you like, for how he does that. It varies, but the way he heals this man is just really unusual, isn't it? So he makes mud with his spit and smears it on the guy's eyes and then tells him to go and wash in the river. And then he realizes that he can see. And as I read that, this question just went round in my mind of, so at what point was the man actually healed? Was he actually healed at the point that Jesus put the mud on his eyes? And it's just that he didn't realise he could see until he washed the mud away. Or did the healing actually happen as he was walking to the river? Or did the healing not happen until he washed the mud off and realised he could see? And, you know, maybe it doesn't matter, but what that made me think about was how when we look to Jesus for healing, whether that's a physical healing or an emotional or mental healing, there may be a process that we go through in that will be different for different people, just as we saw when Jesus healed people in the Bible, that there may be different processes, and we may not know at what point in that process the actual healing was taking place, I guess. But that at the end of that journey, at the end of that process with God, we realise we are healed. And so I guess I just found that encouraging that, you know, we may be on a journey of healing. Maybe we're still at the point where Jesus has put the mud on our eyes and we're walking to the river, but we haven't washed the mud off yet. And so that healing is coming, but we just haven't seen it yet. The second thing that I was thinking about was how the Pharisees respond to this. You know, when we hear of amazing miracles, when we hear of the incredible things that God has done, I guess we do naturally question it. We have questions about it, just like I was questioning, well, what point was the man healed in this story? But the way the Pharisees question Jesus about this isn't questioning in order to try and understand more or in order to discover more. Their questioning is basically trying to catch Jesus out because they think he's done wrong by healing this guy on the Sabbath. And so their questions aren't questions where they're wanting to learn, they are questions where they're wanting to prove someone else wrong. And, you know, that just encouraged me and reminded me when we question things. It is great in our journey with God to question things, to question what we read in the Bible, to question the stuff that we see God doing in people's lives. But let's make those questions that are trying to learn, to discover, to grow, and not questions that are trying to prove others wrong or questions that are trying to prove our preconceived ideas of how things should be. So, two things there. That journey of healing, that we may not know at what point the healing takes place, but that there is a journey of healing. And then as we question what God's doing, questioning with that open heart to learn and grow. Have a great week.